Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and also turn notifications on to be alerted when new videos go live. What's going on, guys? Rapadusky here. Today we're going to do our guide for Bane Soulrend. Now this is something that I started at the beginning of the league, and I do want to start out by saying I'm sorry it took so long to get this out. We had just switched to a 2 PC setup and had a lot of technical difficulties, but everything's worked out now, so we're good to go. Now this setup has been so much fun to play. I started it on day 1. We wanted to go with Soulrend and Bane because I just love the look of the chaos skills. I ended up running in a 3-man team, and I got Shaper down with this build on day 4. We did Uber Elder on day 6. I've subsequently killed Uber Elder 5 or 6 times now with the character, 2 of which I did deathless. So it's very, very powerful, very strong, and very fun to play. The goal or intent of this character is to be my boss killer, right? So I've been using it specifically for killing Shaper and Uber Elder and doing some delving, meaning that I've got it at low life with mega damage, right? I'm not going CI with this character. Now we can touch on how you can switch it to CI, but for the intentions of this character, I've been using it for bossing, so that's why you're not seeing CI as we go through the gear and stuff. So let's jump over, take a look at the gear and the gem setups, and then we'll go through the tree and we'll kind of talk about the ins and outs of the build. The first thing we're going to jump into with this character is to go over its gem setup. Now my 6th link and primary damage source is Bane. I went with Bane because it enables you to spend more time focusing on the mechanical aspects of bossing rather than having to find positions where you can cast Soulrend. Now with Soulrend, when you're actually playing, you have to sit and spam that, whereas with Bane, if Alva here is Elder, you can cast it and then spend the rest of your time running around until the duration of Bane is done and then reapply. Right? So in that instance, since this build was designed for bossing, that makes it a lot more easy to accomplish your goals when doing the high-end encounters in the game. Now my 6th link is Bane, and the curse, or my primary gem in the 6th link is Bane, and the curse I'm using to make Bane work is Despair. Now Despair reduces chaos resistance from enemies. It's really good for chaos builds. And Bane, the way Bane works is when you apply a curse, it does 48% more damage to its base dot, right? So its base dot here is 1181 base chaos damage per second, and then you do 48% more damage per curse applied. Now the way this reads, you would think you would want to do multiple curses associated with Bane, but thanks to a bunch of members in community, they crunch the numbers, and the best way to get the most damage output with this character is to go with 1 curse, so we're using Despair, and then 4 support gems. So the support gems we're using here are Void Manipulation, Controlled Destruction, Efficacy, and Swift Affliction. Now I will give you alternatives for the 5 links, but while you're waiting to get your chest piece 6 linked so that you can kind of walk through the steps, it's very powerful in this setup. Now I went with Occultist, right? So a lot of people are playing Trickster. I wanted to go Occultist because I can get really massive ES numbers. It feels very tanky, and you're getting wither stacks with the Ascendancy. I just felt like I really wanted to do Occultist for this build, and I've loved it so far. It works so well. So we've got ourselves our 6 link setup in the chest, and then we have a backup 4 link with Soulrend. Now Soulrend shoots the projectiles that also do dot damage, and they have a built-in pierce mechanic. So the way that I've been playing this character is I shoot 1 or 2 Soulrends and then run behind, dropping Bane as I go, cleaning up and killing everything as I'm going through the mapping. It's actually very quick and a lot of fun to play. So the 4-link setup is Soulrend, Controlled Destruction, Efficacy, and Greater Multiple Projectiles, so that I send a bunch of those things out. Now if you were using it primarily to do some damage, you could switch out GMP for slower projectiles so that it moves through more slowly and you can do a lot more damage. There's a couple alternatives you could do to make this easier to shoot for a boss, but when I'm using it primarily, it's for mapping, so I just keep GMP on there and it's really easy to do. Now for the rest of my curses, as I have 3 available on this character, I am using the Vicken's Entrapment Gloves. Now these gloves are really cool and they're new. What they do is whenever you cast a curse skill, right, it will target any curses inside and apply them there. So Bane itself does have the curse tag on the gem, so every time I cast Bane, it is also applying temporal chains and enfeeble, right? Making this very, very nice for mapping, for delving, for all of those things. And curses now affect big bosses better than they have in the past. So this setup here has worked very, very well for me as we've gone through doing the different boss fights. And then in this setup, I also have a Mortal Call and cast 1 damage taken just for some more survivability, right? The next thing we're going through is I have Discipline linked with Blood Magic. Now, Vol Discipline is the oh shit hill for ES characters. If your ES is real low, you hit Vol Discipline and boom, it's going to start regenerating very, very quickly for you. So it's nice to have there. You can also, in this setup, run Discipline, giving you a large boost in ES overall. And in this setup here, I also then have Righteous Fire, which you can use to give you a big burst of spell damage when you're doing different phases of boss fights, and Clarity, a level 1 Clarity to just give me some mana regeneration as I go. Now, touching on the last couple of links, I'm also using a Vol Blight here. Vol Blight gives me the ability to do one more dot. I'm actually cranking out a solid amount of DPS from this 3 link, right? So we have Blight, Void Manipulation, and Controlled Destruction. And I'm not actually manually casting Blight like this. When I'm going through map clear, when the Vol Blight is prepared and ready to go, I just hit it and it does rings of Blight out, applying another dot, right? So it's just dot upon dot upon dot, and you're just doing so much damage this way. In this link here, we have Arcane Surge and Flame Dash. So every time that I Flame Dash, I'm getting this bonus buff that you deal more damage and have increased cast speed and mana regeneration. So as long as you're moving through the map and you keep this up, it's giving you another buff to the build. And then here I have Malevolence. This is a new aura from this league, and it gives you more damage over time. It's huge. So right now we're running 3 different auras, making this character very, very powerful. Now I want to touch on other pieces of the gear. This is the big ticket item right here, Chavaron's Wrappings. This gives you a bunch of ES. It also allows you to take chaos damage from Energy Shield instead of life, enabling you to run at low life instead of CI, right? So this is very, very nice. The other thing I want to touch on that's unique to this setup, I'm using Eber's Unification. Now, Eber's Unification triggers a level 10 Void Gaze every time you use an ability. Flame Dash is the easiest way to show this. So when I Flame Dash, you'll see purple kind of shoot out of my eyes here. That purple reduces enemies' chaos resistance by 20%. It gives you so much more damage overall with this character, making it very, very, very heavy and high-end damage at the end game. If we're talking on the other slots, you can have some flexibility in these areas. For right now, I just have rings that are balancing out my resistances and a amulet with some decent energy shield. Later, I may go with Chayulas here. Now, Chayulas will give you, I think it's 20% of your max life, of your overall max life as more ES, giving you a big boost to energy shield, which you can easily get this character up to 10k. On the weapon, I'm using the Breath of the Council. Now, if you look at the Cerberus limb, it will in POB show more DPS. You can use that, but Chaos skills have 40% increased skill effect duration. Skill effect duration does impact the amount of time Bane does ticks, right? So in this instance, this is going to be my preferred weapon item for this slot, because the more time that Bane ticks, the less times I have to apply it when I'm running around fighting Uber and Shaper and all those good things. The only other thing to touch on here is I am using a crystal belt for ES, but later I'll switch to a Stygian with a percentage of body armor ES as extra ES. That's going to be a nice boost to ES, plus it'll give me an abyssal socket. And then here I do want to go ahead and use a spirit shield, because I am taking one of the new shield wheels on the tree. That's giving me a lot more DPS overall. So I do want to touch on this quickly while we're in the gear. I did set this up this morning and try it out. You can just switch out some of these pieces here for the current ones that you're running and go to a straight MF character, right? If I get myself one more Ventors, we can get ourselves up to about 55, 55 quantity, and then run around and farm doctors or whatever you want to do, rather than having to run a different character in order to farm, doctor cards or whatever you're chasing this league. So that is a viable option for this, and I played it this morning and it was a lot of fun and it ran really, really smooth. So let's jump over, take a look at the tree, and I'll go through the different routes that I took while leveling this character. Alright guys, we're going to jump into the tree and look at how I leveled this character and talk about the gems I used while cruising through the process from 1 until end of Act 10. Now what I did was a little different, and I've been doing this on every toon I've leveled regardless of the tree. I take Stormbrand with added poison and onslaught, and then in a 4-link I take Herald of Agony. Now Herald of Agony is the scorpion, the agony crawler, and the way that Stormbrand works, it ticks out and shocks everything every couple of milliseconds, right? Every time it does that with added poison, it poisons those enemies around the Stormbrand, giving you virulent stacks. When you're running through the axe, you get those stacks immediately when you set a Stormbrand right in the center of mobs. You're also getting onslaught from the Stormbrand and with the onslaught rework, so you're just flying through and the scorpion is following along with you, laying waste to all of the enemies in front of you. And I don't have to really worry about the tree all that much while I'm leveling. I actually leveled the Wander this way recently. It was super easy to play. So what I did with this character is I went straight up this energy shield up to Deep Wisdom, right? And then I immediately came over and went down and grabbed Melding to grab myself some life, as we do have to go hybrid until we can make a full transition to ES. From there, I went straight up, came over and grabbed Growth and Decay and Written in Blood. Right? And from here, instead of going down, I went up and over and grabbed Atrophy. And then from Atrophy, you can go ahead and go over and grab this Arcane Swiftness, as you may be using a shield at that point. If you're not using a shield at this point, go ahead and skip that and wait if you're doing like 2 life sprigs or something along those lines to level with. From there, I came back to Deep Wisdom and I started cruising up this way on the tree to work myself over to Corruption to get more damage over time and chaos damage, as the Herald of Agony does do chaos damage, and you're going to eventually get there with your main skills. And you should have Soulrend at this point as well. You can go ahead and cast that and put that in another 4-link while you're cruising through the leveling process. Then I went over and grabbed Whispers of Doom, and while I was leveling, I was using, Enfeeble, I was using Warlord's Mark. As I was running with the group, I could have Warlord's Mark that I could instantly apply with Bane, and it would give mana regeneration to myself and to the rest of my party. You could also put any other dots in there, any other curses in there that you prefer to use as you go through the leveling process. And then I worked my way all the way down over here and got myself Spiritual Aid. Now, Spiritual Aid is a really, really cool node on the tree. A lot of people ask about this on stream, so I want to touch on it here briefly. Spiritual Aid increases and reductions to minion damage also affect you. Right? So the way that this reads and the way that it works, that means that the 10% increased damage here to minions, the 20% or the 20% here, 12%, 12%, all of these affect your main skills as well. So that's why you're seeing a lot of characters when you're taking a look at builds on PoE Ninja that are using Spiritual Aid. So these nodes and Lord of the Dead, minion damage, these nodes are also affecting your skills, right? That's why I still have them there, even though this is no longer a Herald of Agony setup. So I came all the way over here, grabbed Spiritual Aid, and I also, as I was in that process, grabbed some of these and grabbed Unnatural Calm, as this is going to give me some ES and help me to get through my first and second lab. From there, I then came back, jumped back over here, started working my way down, and I came through the center finally at the end and grab the rest of my ES and grab this gem slot. You're going to want to get Energy from Within pretty early. Energy from Within gives you 6% increased maximum energy shield, and it also changes all the increases and reductions to life in this area get added to your overall energy shield, right? So this gives you a big boost in your energy shield. And from there, the only other gem slot that I'm using at the moment is here, and it's using a really nicely rolled Cobalt Jewel. So it's giving me 10% increased damage, 8% increased maximum energy shield, and then some non-ailment Kalis over time multiplier, right? So that's a really nice gem. Later, I'll be taking some other jewel slots. I want to come over here and swing and grab this bad boy, and I might actually put another Energy from Within over here. But notice that I don't need Spreading Rot with this character. You do have Wither stacks from your Ascendancy, so you can go ahead and take those other gem slots for more energy shields or more damage. Honestly, this thing is doing so much damage right now that I would take the jewel slots and put priority on grabbing yourself more survivability, because survivability is always king. You can't do damage when you're dead. A couple of things I want to point out here is I'm taking Alchemist, right? You do not need to take this. If you don't want to take Alchemist, it's just a quality of life thing for me. When I'm running around mapping and cruising through, I like to have a lot of duration on my flasks, right? So that I can just run and gun, man. That is my favorite way to play. If I wasn't going to take this, I would move it and go grab this extra gem slot. Like if I wanted to really min-max this character out at the very, very end, or wanted to do another encounter. The shield nodes. Now let's talk on this. The arcane swiftness here gives you a ton of damage. You're going to want to grab yourself a nice spell shield and throw this on. This character benefits from chaos damage, damage over time, and spell damage. There's no crit for the chaos skills, so you don't have to worry about that at all. And when you're looking for jewels and nice things like that, you're going to want chaos or damage over time if you're trying to increase your damage that way. Now, another alternative that I want to mention is if you wanted to, instead of pathing this way, if you got rid of these nodes, you could come through here, come up and grab this arcane guarding, and then come over and work your way up from this route. That is another option that I'm toying with, and that gives you a ton more ES from this arcane guarding shield wheel as well, which is very, very nice. The other thing that came last at the end of the tree when I came down is we came down here and grabbed Method of Madness, and I also came over and grabbed Void Barrier, giving you some evasion, more energy shield, and some all res. The more all res that I'm getting from the tree, the less I have to worry about on my gear, giving me more flexibility on taking those big damage boost items instead of going for pure resistances from my loot. The last thing I want to touch on with the tree, and then we'll go over Ascendancy, is Pain Attunement. Now, what Pain Attunement does, when you're at low life, you do 30% more spell damage. More is a huge, huge multiplier. I want this for killing Uber Elder and Shaper, right? So I want as much damage as I can to make that fight go really, really fast. I don't have to worry about chaos damage in those encounters, so I don't need to go CI. Instead, I do the blood magic tied with discipline. Now, blood magic, what it does is it uses life instead of mana. So when I activate this ability here, and you'll see my life wheel on the side of me over there, it's going to take my life down to low and then activate Pain Attunement, giving me a huge boost in DPS. I really like playing this way. I did this on another character last league for Arc Mines, so I wanted to give it a try here, and it's disgusting. It's just a disgusting boost to damage. It's really cool to play with. If you didn't want to go that route, you could go with a really, really nice Vol Regalia. Not use blood magic here. You'd have to take some Enlightened Gems, and potentially instead of taking the flask node or the flask nodes and going for that other pathing, you would come over and start taking some reduced mana reserved, so that you could then still utilize your same auras, but also go Chaos Inoculation. So that is a option for this character, and I definitely keep that in mind going through. Now for my Ascendancy, I first went to Void Beacon, giving all nearby stuff negative chaos resistances. This also helps with the Herald of Agony while I'm leveling, right? Then I'd pop over and grab Withering Presence, which I didn't get till the Blood Aqueducts when I was already switching over to full Bane and Soulrend, right? Getting rid of my Herald of Agony crawler at that exact moment. Now Withering Presence is really, really benefiting me as I've switched over to my full setup, and I'm starting to work through using my 4-link on Bane, and then my, and my 4-link on Soulrend and cruising through. And then from there, I went over and grabbed Wicked Ward to grab myself some energy shield and Vile Bastion. Now, if you're feeling really confident, you have your Chayulas, you have a bunch of ES from the tree, you could drop this and go with Malediction. So you'd have Withering Presence and Malediction. This is the glass cannon variant, right? If you don't care at all about survivability, you're not going to delve with this tune at all, you can ditch this, go with Malediction, and just slay the world, right? So that's up to you. I went with this for now. I may end up going that route later after I've created my Divine Ire character, which is next on the list. All right, guys, that's everything I wanted to cover today. So I really, really hope that you guys enjoy Bane and Soulrend. I have loved this character so far. This is the second league in a row that I've started making my own builds and kind of going for killing Uber Elder with something custom and brand new, and this one was the easiest by far. I did Uber on day 5, like I said earlier, and by my 3rd attempt, we had done it deathless. It is so good to play. It's so much damage. It's tanky. Overall, I just love that I went with Occultist on this. I am planning on doing a Trickster for my upcoming Divine Ire Delving character. I'm going to design it specifically specifically for Delve. And I do want to keep this one around to do some more boss killing with this specifically as we go throughout Synthesis. Now, I will tell you guys, if you did not really enjoy the beginning of Synthesis, they are patching this right now and they're going to be fixing it as we go forward through next week. I definitely recommend coming and giving it another try, as they're addressing all of the community concerns basically that we've had up to this point, and it looks like it's going to be a blast. If you've never seen my Twitch stream, guys, it's twitch.tv/dropadooski. I stream 5 days a week. Come on over, ask me live if you got any questions on this build, other builds I've done, or your own specific build. We can kind of work through it, take a look at it as a community, and get things dialed in and get things more ironed out for you as you go through this league. Good luck out there. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, and we'll have more content coming soon. Peace.